Okay, I see people already joining us. Aaron, I didn't ask you if you have a trivia question.
I think we'll have to dispose of it for today. We've got a lot we want to get to, so we'll save that for the next time.
I'm going to get us live on Facebook. Let me mute myself really quick. Okay, so we are recording and we are live streaming on Facebook. Later today, I will post our recording to IFU's YouTube channel because that may be a little more accessible for people as opposed to Facebook. Aaron, everything is set on my end. I see people coming into our audience. Everyone, let us know where you're joining us from. I'm sure the congressman would be interested in that. And I think we can get started.
Well, very good. Well, welcome everyone. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn, and we have a very special guest today, Congressman Earl Blumenauer from Oregon's 3rd District to talk about Farm Bill issues with us. Congressman, thank you so much for being with us. It's really an honor to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Well, we're going to do just a couple quick Farmers Union announcements before we get started with our conversation about the Farm and Food Act of 2023. Christina, give us a quick Iowa Farmers Union update.
Yeah, so I have a couple of things for everyone. So next week, Thursday, January 14th at 12:30, our usual time, we are going to have Chris Marion back for our 4th and final training in the Communications and Leadership for Impact series. So we're going to be talking about taking your story to the streets, from one-on-ones to running for office. I'm going to drop the link in the chat where you can also view the recordings from the other 3 sessions. We've talked about finding your why, all of those things. So I will put that in the chat so you can register for next week and maybe catch up if you've missed some of those previous discussions. And also, I do not have a link for this, but I just want to tell everyone we are scheduling with Chris Jones to have him on later this month. So we'll be talking about the Save Bloody Run Creek efforts, the Supreme Beef Feedlot that is attempting to come in, and he's going to offer some comments, I think, on testimony he's going to give. So that will be either the last Thursday of the month or the Thursday after that. Aaron, do you want to talk about our fundraising efforts?
Sure, we're approaching the end of the year, and our kind, generous folks at the Iowa Farmers Union are participating in our $30,000 in 30 days campaign. We've gotten a great start at the Iowa Farmers Union Convention, which concluded last Saturday, and we're on our way to our goal, but we have a long ways to go. Our folks have our Farmers Union is made up of a very kind and generous and giving membership, and we are so grateful for you and your support. If you haven't had a chance yet, go to the link in the chat and make your contribution today. So thank you so much for your generosity in that regard. But let's go ahead and get started with our conversation today. Congressman Earl Blumenauer is a Democrat representing Oregon's 3rd District, and he's here to talk about the Farm and Food Act of 2023 that he has introduced, and it has some really important principles for ag reform, focusing on resources for those who need it most, on innovation, on investments for our planet and for the people of our planet, and health. And we got such great response once the bill was introduced that we wanted to have a good conversation with Congressman Earl Blumenauer about it. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to the conversation with you folks this afternoon. Iowa is very important to me. The history that you have, the populist. I mean, we talked earlier about Art Cullen, who's one of my personal heroes, and people in Iowa have been pushing back on the sad state of national agricultural policy. people who are fighting for conservation, that we can't continue to lose this volume of rich topsoil. That you are sort of the Saudi Arabia of topsoil, but it's tons and tons and tons washed away, a precious resource. But I'm excited that we're having this conversation now when there's a slightly different orientation about agriculture reform. I have been adamant that I'm tired of having the federal government pay too much to the wrong people to grow the wrong food, the wrong way, in the wrong places.
Mm. Mm.
We're subsidizing a diet that makes Americans sick, and we are subsidizing the loss of this precious resource that is represented by the treasure that you have with rich Iowa soil. I'm excited to have a conversation about legislation I've introduced, which is the result of hundreds of conversations I had primarily in Oregon, but other parts of the country as well, where after the Farm Bill before last, I was kind of frustrated with that process. So I spent time traveling Oregon and other parts of the country and asking a basic question. What would a farm bill look like if it was just for you? You know, not very many people said, I like with the farm bill we've got. It's, as a practical matter, it does not meet the needs of Americans, farmers and ranchers. The Farm Bill misdirects federal resources. It undermines human health and nutrition, problems for the environment. It's devastating for small and medium-sized farmers and ranchers. The majority of the farm safety net goes to a narrow range of producers. It's not the family farms that get most of the money, and many of the producers who have diversified agriculture get basically shut out. It's good for large commodities, but that's not the bulk of American agriculture, and it's not the future of what we need for our the future of agriculture. Over the last 40 years, the amount of acreage for small and medium-sized farmers has been cut in half. Cut in half. And corporate agribusiness has doubled its share of the agricultural economy. And I hear so much about the problems in rural and small town America. There is, in fact, a crisis. And I don't have to tell you, the deaths of despair, the farmers' suicide rates are 3.5 times greater than the general population. And we watch what's happened in terms of farm ownership, the struggles that people have, the challenges they have to be good neighbors. We need to do a better job. And last but not least, what's the next generation of agriculture look like? The average farmer is pushing 60 years of age. We're not doing enough to prepare the next generation. It's a missed opportunity, because everywhere I go talking about food and farm policy, I find young people are very interested. They want to farm. They care about restaurants. I had legislation during the pandemic that resulted in $28.6 billion fund to help rescue family restaurants, small independent family restaurants. We need to do more to help people at scale. And this is a time when we're watching the climate change make it harder to be good stewards of the land. People are more at risk. And the farm safety net is not much of a safety net for the average farmer and rancher. We've been trying for years to make reforms of the crop insurance program. there are 1,341 producers who make more than $900,000 in annual gross income, and they have 2/3 of their crop insurance premium paid by the federal government. Extraordinarily rich people don't need that subsidy, when so many farmers and ranchers, for example, there aren't EQIP funds available. We're only able to fund about 20% of the grant requests. And it's not based on performance. It's not a performance based. And we end up subsidizing things that really aren't improving the environment. We shouldn't be paying for fences and hog lagoons. Only 1 in 5 American farmers can afford to participate in the program at all. Yet the price tag is going up. It's not helping producers access insurance. Less than 1%, as I say, receive 1% receives 22% of the premium subsidies. And because of premium subsidies that are so generous, farmers receive $2 for every dollar they spend buying insurance. But less than 20% of the farms can afford to participate. Now that's backwards. That's absolutely the wrong approach to take. We're providing $2 billion in crop subsidies to insurance agents, not farmers. $2 billion to insurance agents. And these crop insurance companies, many of them are foreign owned, and they're guaranteed a rate of return that is 14.5%. One out of $2 billion in underwriting gains for crop insurance companies. We want to have simple reforms that focus the attention where it is needed. It's something that I raised repeatedly here. Sadly, there's little appetite for crop insurance reform, despite the fact that the GAO just came out with the latest report that highlighted the inequities and the inefficiencies. So it's time for the federal government to help people farm, particularly small and medium-sized family operations, not mega farms, not foreign operators, be able to put the money where it'll do the most good. I look forward to having a conversation with you about that. We have information about our farm reform bill that's got a variety of elements in it. It's pretty simple and straightforward. But the bottom line is to cut, cap, and clarify existing subsidy programs, expand existing conservation programs, increase access to healthy foods, and establish a food waste title to better prioritize food waste reduction. That helps us with our climate goals and will help with agriculture affordability. I've chatted longer than I should. I look forward to your comments and questions.
Well, great. We're getting a number of questions that have already been sent in, and we'll encourage people to put their questions in the Q&A box on your Zoom screen, and we'll get to as many as we can. But we started off with a couple of questions about the crop insurance issue that you brought up. Where do you see the biggest need for reform in crop insurance, and how does your bill go about reforming crop insurance? Because we have a number of comments that crop insurance has led to further farm consolidation.
Yes,
it's led to larger farms and fewer small and medium-sized farms.
Well, and that's the problem. It rewards volume over value. We want to, as I mentioned earlier, I want to be able to provide a more diverse base for crop insurance. The smaller producers of row crops, fruits and vegetables, nuts and berries, nursery stock, don't qualify for meaningful crop insurance. We want to cut down on the guaranteed profit. I mentioned 14.5%. Have some meaningful limits. It's interesting that this group of Republicans, one of the first things they did was try to cut back on nutrition assistance. They want to have stricter limits, tighter incomes, and we have 37,000 farmers who've received subsidies of $1 million a year or more for over 35 consecutive years. That's have reasonable limits, lower, more diversified base. It's not that hard.
Sure. And, you know, we talked a little bit about the next generation of farmers and how difficult it is for enter into a space that is so consolidated. So we have a question that asks about how do we make room for young farmers in such a consolidated marketplace? One of the statistics that our friends at the Young Farmers Coalition remind us is for every one farmer we have who's under age 35, we have 4 over age 65. Which is a very sobering statistic. How can we make room for young and beginning farmers in a consolidated space like this?
Well, we have in my bill, Title V provides resources for beginning, retiring, and socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. There have been some huge inequities over time, particularly for African American farmers, and it's hard for people to crack this system. Focusing on resources for people who need it the most, not large operations, is very important. We want to be able to have chances to transition, for people to have different patterns of ownership, that, you know, in terms of helping deal with farm trusts, conservation easements. There are a number of mechanisms that we can employ to help keep this in agricultural production and to give more resources. Right now, when we have, I was told at one point that the figure for the number of farms in Iowa that are owned by widows in their 70s, it's a staggering amount of acreage. Being able to help them understand how they can transition it to a family member or to community members, being able to have requirements in terms of the trust, be able to give them the technical advice that would help. There are a number of people who don't want their farm to be lost to farming, and being able to give them access technically to organizations that want to help that realize that dream is the least we can do.
You also mentioned about the big need for a conservation investment that makes a difference on farms and makes a difference for our soils and our natural resources. We know that the Inflation Reduction Act put in a big investment in conservation, and there's a lot of discussion about the use of the IRA and how it relates to this upcoming farm bill. How do we keep those conservation investments so that they can make a big difference on the farm and in our rural communities?
Well, it's very important to be able to spotlight who's going to benefit from this. There are some who want to claw back some of those investments and for short-term advantage for larger operations. That is cutting off our nose to spite our face. Being able to invest in things that will make conservation programs performance-based, put income limits on it, and make the investments that qualify actually improve the environment. We shouldn't be subsidizing people putting up fences, for instance, or hog lagoons. That doesn't help the environment. That's the cost of doing business. We ought to pump those into the EQIP grants, where people are out there actually improving soil health, improving water quality. There's no end of opportunities. And we ought to concentrate these monies on things that will make the biggest difference for the environment. Make the programs performance-based.
Well, and I wanted to shift a little bit to one of the first things you mentioned about the overall system that our Farm Bill supports. And you mentioned about subsidizing a diet that makes people sick, among other things. Would you like to elaborate on that very important point?
Sure. Well, it's really exciting watching a movement where in some health programs, doctors are able to write a prescription for healthy food. And it is cost effective for these health insurance providers to give healthy food. It's more expensive as opposed to, McDonald's Happy Meals. So there's the subsidized commodities that produce cheap fast food that have a lot of empty calories. Giving the opportunity for healthcare providers to subsidize and using healthcare dollars, healthy foods, protects the producer. It gives better outcomes for the people who receive it. And these are things we can do in expanding our farmers markets. We're seeing now a number of states that have qualified for waivers for Medicaid spending. These are federal healthcare dollars that ends up saving the system healthcare expenditures by giving people prescriptions for healthy foods. This is a golden opportunity to double down on providing people with these very nutritious, locally sourced products. And it is a golden opportunity to put these things together. Healthy food, better health. The healthcare dollars we have in state after state for the state Medicaid programs, costs are out of control. But being able to help underwrite the costs of healthy foods helps local food production, and it gives significant health benefits for individuals. This has been tried across the country on a pilot basis. It works. It works. It's better for people, and it saves money.
Well, we've gotten into a point in our Farm Bill discussions in Congress where we've put in an extension, and we know that that we've got a lot of work to do in order to see a Farm Bill progress. Give us some insight on where you think the debate is going, and the role of you and your colleagues in shaping the debate.
Well, there are an increasing number of people who care deeply about food and farm policy. They care about nutrition. They care about soil health. They care about animal welfare. This constituency is growing. But the industrial model, big food, processed food, large operations, they're operating 24/7, 365 days a year. But they're not ascendant. We're finding now more and more people understand the health impacts of healthy food, the vital nature of soil health, and farm programs that are just out of touch with the needs of the average farmer and rancher. being able to deal with local food meat processing, and pushing back against big meat. Frankly, that you've seen the consolidation in Iowa and pork production that's really shameful. So being able to enforce the Stockman's Act, being able to limit the amount of subsidy that goes to large industrial operations and do a better job of helping smaller producers. These are all things that will make a difference. It's a tough sell. The big money is not in terms of healthy food, healthy soil, healthy competition. It's to the contrary. But the public is catching up, and more activists are speaking out. And Iowa has the potential, because there's going to be a lot of people paying attention to you early in the election cycle, to have outside influence. It's something that it's not in keeping with maybe the dominant political strain, but people in Iowa understand these dynamics, and people will listen to you. And I strongly hope that people will get involved in this election cycle. I don't think they've got the votes to be able to get the completed farm bill across the finish line. There's too much competition for money, and there's too much controversy about how they spend it. The fact that there's an even split in the Senate, that there's a dysfunction in the House, and there's disagreement among the Republicans themselves, gives us an opportunity. And there are some principled conservatives. I worked for years, for example, with Paul Ryan on proposals to rein in agricultural subsidies. There's a chance to build coalitions with principled conservatives and people who care about nutrition and the environment and protecting small and medium-sized farmers. You're on the side of the angels. The public supports you, and being able to make your case every opportunity is really critical.
Well, and despite all the challenges that we're facing in developing a good farm bill, I hear a lot of optimism in the message you're giving, that our folks need to continue to carry that message forward about a farm bill that promotes human health, soil health, and rural communities.
Well, you have made a difference in terms of protection of organics, in terms of providing support for farmers markets, for support for WIC and elderly senior citizens. And one of the things that's so interesting is that some of our opponents of reform are incorporating the language of reform. You know, if you don't listen carefully, you'd think that, hey, maybe they're one of us, but you need to listen carefully. But that's a signal that we're winning in the court of public opinions, because people actually strongly support family agriculture. People support healthier foods. People support new and beginning farmers. These are things that they believe in, and they don't want their subsidy dollars to be bled away to rich farmers and great significant agribusiness enterprises. So there's growing awareness of the facts, and there is more and more support for doing the right things. And you in Iowa have been on the cutting edge.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I know that the conversation threads that have started here will keep going even after we have to stop our conversation here today. It's been a real pleasure to have you with us, Congressman. Thank you so much. We'll look forward to connecting the things we've talked about today with future conversations with you. We really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate the visit, Aaron, and I have some of my heroes. Art Cullen is, I think, the most influential agricultural journalist in America, with the possible exception of Michael Pollan. And you've had some real champions. I think of my friend Leonard Boswell and Bruce Brave, other people from Iowa who fought the good fight and are continuing to do that.
Absolutely. And we our folks at our recent convention this past weekend had a great chance to get the latest perspective from Art Cullen, and he'll be anxious to get caught up with you about some of those perspectives. But you're right, we were able to get a really energizing message from him, and your words today have been super for us here as well. So thank you again. We really appreciate you and your time.
Well, know how much your words matter. And so we're looking forward to hearing from you as well.
Very good. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. This is the Iowa Farmers Union Lunch and Learn series. This is part of our outreach to our members and to the general public about issues important to family farmers, to sustainable agriculture, and to thriving rural communities. If you haven't had a chance to join the Iowa Farmers Union yet, please do so today. And we are also right in the middle of our end of year giving program. Please check the link in the chat and continue to be a supportive organization that works together for the betterment of rural Iowa. So thanks everyone for joining us. Again, Congressman, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
Have a good day, everyone. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.